This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah. Change date, Ken.
Well, it does for a little while.
Welcome everyone to the Monday, September the 19th, 2022 Bladen County Commissioners meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone that's come out tonight. And at this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Cameron McGill from the Lake Church is going to be leading us in our prayer and following Mr. Martin with our pledge. May we stand, please?
Pray, Father, thank you for the privilege of serving you by serving those who told us that, Lord, the greatest call of all is to serve. And so we are honored tonight to be in that great position. I pray that we might serve with humility, with dignity, with integrity, that you would give us discerning minds and spirits, that which we might discuss and vote upon would be in accordance to your will. Thank you for those that have gathered that represent our community. Thank you for, Lord, that we're so far from where we were a year ago. And I thank you that, Lord, our better days are still ahead. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Consent item, we like to got a motion by Mr. Peterson, a second by Mr. Cogdale. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Declare open hearing to receive comments regarding proposed application to the Community Development Block Grant Neighborhood Revitalization CDBG-NR. Anyone here? Mr. Nate? Yes, sir.
So just one comment on that. The deadline for applications was the 13th. We did not, we received one, but it was after the 13th. So we didn't have enough to apply for the grant. So what we're going to do is we're going to advertise that we're going to take applications this whole year and we'll apply this time next year.
Thank you, sir. Individual delegates wishing to address commissioners. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me back up. Let me close. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing? Got a motion by I move. Dr. Mungo and a second by Mr. Bullock. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Thank you. Individual delegation wishing to address the commission. Thank you, ma'am. Matter of interest to commissioners.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to see if we can request the DOT to resurface Highway 87 east. It's rough. I think maybe the big, large trucks have ruined the road. If we can get them to resurface that, it would be really nice.
Any particular section or
what things are starting really right at the when the 4 lanes in on 87 and all the way down.
Mr. Martin, can you look into that, please, sir?
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to bring something up at our last session when we talked about about the sites, recycle sites. And I did notice that they have bought some dirt or a big log or a load or something, but they haven't spread it. I thought it would be, then it's been a month now. And it's right in front of these recycle place where they have that little handicap stuff. I mean, stuff for people that want to go away.
You refer to?
East Arcadia.
Okay.
And it's been like that for a month now. So if they can get that smooth.
They're intending to grade and fill in some holes. They just haven't got back.
Okay.
Yes. We do that to try to maintain, keep the sites drivable. So the rocks there, it was put there so that they can grade that site, smooth out the hole.
Okay.
Well,
it's been a lot of water over there, and they haven't looked at it.
I'll see what.
Thank you.
Mr. Peterson.
Mr. Brett, if it's okay, I'd like Ms. Martin to give us, you don't have to do it tonight, give us an update, maybe the next meeting around our economic development, job search specialist or whatever. They have come up to decide what to do or whatever, or what to present.
We are working on that, though. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
A couple other things. When we do a policy update, how the employees, how they how are they informed of that? Do they get email messages or how is that done? When we do a policy update, you want to address that, Mr. Martin?
Yes, sir. Generally, information is shared with department managers, and they share with their employees or how. Is there a particular?
No, the last time, I think we updated one, can't remember what it was now. We made some updates in it, and I was wondering, how do the employees know about this? But you're saying that they're being advised through the department.
Human resources normally,
Okay.
send out something, but we'll follow up on that. The ones last week where I know were, at the last meeting where, we were trying to be sure that our language reflects the language the state has or whatever.
Okay, yeah, that's right. But now, one other thing, what are our operational procedures? You know, when something comes up that affects the county, does it come before all of us, before we make a decision on it, or decisions made, or how is that done?
Example, so we know.
Like, if the legislative goal letter that was sent out, it was, I don't disagree with it, but I thought maybe it should come before us so we could have some input on it.
Mr. Martin asked that at the last meeting, if anyone had anything they would like to add.
But the letter
At
was,
that time, we didn't have anything.
did we have the letter written in?
No, the matter came up that, actually, that, if you're referring to the matter on the reimbursing counties for property that's been acquired by the state and this.
Yeah. I don't disagree with it.
Yeah.
I just want to know how
I
we.
know that came up late that afternoon when, right at the, the day that due this.
Yeah, it was time sensitive.
That matter has been, just to, particularly for newer commissioners, and you all saw the email at the same time I did, or received the email at the same time. But I will say that matter has been submitted for numerous occasions, and it actually made it to through the legislative goals process to a committee, and I think this was in 2015 or 2016, 2015 probably. However, the Senate and the House never made the appointments to the committee, so it really kind of activity.
But I want to let it be known, I'm not against that. Sure. But I just want to know what, should it come before us and we have some input on it or whatever.
That's a valid question. Yes, sir, Mr. Bailey.
They normally, people get them out ahead of time and the board does decide if that's a goal or not. I send it at the last minute. So.
I understand it was time sensitive.
Well, it's nothing that's, not couldn't benefit this county by a great deal. But when I wait to the last minute or you wait to the last minute, you don't have time to get a vote on it. So that was my fault.
Well, really, we could have maybe got a canvas by telephone.
I sent it at the very last minute. I didn't do it purposely. I just was reading through some emails and I sent it at the last minute. So that was my fault.
But I'm not against that.
When you seen it, if you didn't like it, you should have sent Greg a comment and say you don't like it, and we would have pulled it.
I'm not against it. I just want to know how we operate. That's all I have.
That to be kind of a hodgepodge anyway.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. It was a blanket.
Mr. Peterson asked you about economic development, and you said you were working on it. But how far have you completed the job description? Have you done that yet?
That's what we're working on.
Oh, we haven't done anything. We've
had conversations. We're trying to really determine exactly the best approach for the position to make a recommendation back.
So can you show me time frame? Where are you working? When are you trying to have it done? By when?
As soon as possible. I don't have a specific date, but like I said, I know we have a meeting next week with several other representatives who are part of the discussion.
We'll get that before you get out posted.
Yes, I'm gonna make a report back that's what I was saying. I'll report back to you at the next meeting.
Bring it, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
If you get us a report.
That's what I asked him.
Yeah.
You did, but. Thank you.
Can I ask one question on that? When we're looking at the time, has it interfered with the operation of what's going on down there at Economic Development Board down there? When you were talking about the employee, is it time sensitive enough that we need to do it before that position vacates? Where are we at with it?
Well, this is the recruitment position. So it really does.
You see what I'm asking was, are we looking at two positions or one position? That's the question I'm asking.
That position is separate from finance.
That's what I was asking about, we were talking about, we were discussing it for
The finance.
position, for the
Right.
finance, and then we're talking about one for the recruitment course that Charles was talking about. We're talking about one or two positions.
Well, there's been discussion about two. The way we left it the last time, if I'm not mistaken, that Chuck was here, it kind of summed up, if I'm not mistaken, Gillespie kind of made one of the last statements, like, so we're looking at two positions. And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but that's kind of my recollection.
But so you're writing the description and trying to do the justification for both of them. Is that what you're doing?
We're looking at, we're trying to explore the logistics of how to best do that,
Okay.
achieve both.
Anyone else? I'd like to make a clarification too, because it has come up. I received a phone call wanting to know if the commissioners would support financially the fifth voting site for early voting. And it's pretty easy for me, 15 years on the Board of Elections. I got statute right here and all the stuff to back it up. It was a time-sensitive matter. It is one that requires a vote of the board at some point in time, but we've got to pay the invoice. But my experience knows what we have to do as commissioners. If the Board of Elections in the state says 8 early voting sites, we do a budget at the Board of Elections just like any other department. However, that particular board, you don't know if you're going to have runoffs, spin-offs, jump-offs, or whatever. If the bill is $3 million, we got to pay it. And the statute states, that we do so. And so there was a time-sensitive situation because it had to go for the state, the county had to approve it, our county board. And so by knowing the statutes, and I called Mr. Martin about the money situation, he was aware of it, and we have to do what's right. However, another reason I brought it up, it's like I and we support Sunday voting. I never have and never will support personally Sunday voting. But I want everybody to know that because I believe in church and state, and I believe that Sunday is a day for people to obey and do certain things religiously. And that's a debatable thing with some people. I realize that, but it was like I encourage and support it. I do not, and I just want everybody to know. But I do believe in not suppressing the vote of people voting and the rights for people to vote. So the fifth site is a good thing, and the government site had been the whole 15 years I was on there, and I got the number right here. That's your #1 voting site, and that should be definitely an early voting site. So that's why we did, because the statute says we got to pay the bill regardless of what it is. Yes, sir.
Just on that topic, when I looked at that and I seen, I called Mr. Martin and asked him what was going on with that. I've never seen that process go through that type of form. And my question to him was, should we look at when we do our budget, appropriate more money and look at some kind of way to put a figure in on what it might cost? Do we leave it open-ended and just pay it, or do we? Above I'm asking, is it going to affect your lease the way you prepare a budget if we going to leave it open-ended? Or should we just?
Well, going back to what I said, you never know how many runoffs that you're going to have. You have to do a budget. And the whole time I was there, they were pretty well spot on. And, but it can be blown out of the water too. But,
that was my question. If they come in and all of a sudden they say, I want 8 sites, 9 sites, do we need to anticipate that it may be fluctuation in the sites starting again? If they start doing this, we looking at increasing that volume of?
Well, I think they look at a reasonable thing.
And ideally, there would be conversation about that, when budget preparation is taking place. Just like when my comment back to Brett was, well, any additional money would require a budget amendment to be approved by the Board of Commissioners. So I think we all have general opinion of that.
All right. No problem. I just didn't know when we get ready to open up a firewall where we gonna have everybody just coming in and saying, well, 10, 15 of these things from Jump Street.
You don't need to have an open-ended budget. You need to do it like Mr. Brett and Mr. Martin says. We need to do it through budget amendment. Because it's pretty well set from year to year to year. This is the first year it's changed in, 2 or 3 elections, Mr. Brett?
Yeah, and I try to do it to respect the commissioners. We have an obligation to the people. We serve at the pleasure of the people and their voters, and that's their request, and they had been requested, so we honored it and said yes, because it was easy to say we honored, because I know that's what we got to do. You know. But,
So you saying that we should do it through a budget amendment?
Budget amendment.
We get rid of it. So
and that's what
because,
Mr. Martin said.
I didn't know what it was gonna cause a problem with the budget lines. They just meant, coming, they want 7, 8, 9, 10 or something.
We do try to, anticipate runoffs like years of statewide elections or national elections or whatever. So, hopefully that won't be necessary, and then that provides a little cushion or whatever, so we'll just have to say that.
No, the reason I'm asking this question is when this shifted and we went to that many sites, I looked at the voter turnout primary and the amount of money that was spent for the primary with how many sites, 4 sites. And it was an astronomical amount of money for Tar Heels to get 6 votes in one day.
Well,
It was an astronomical amount of money.
Well, and to be honest with you, Mr. Cogdell, I'm not on the board, and I would never like to be perceived trying to tell them what to do, because that's their board and that's their decision. But I agree with what you're saying. The whole 15 years I was there, Bethel is your #1 voting site, and I've got the numbers right here to show it, but it was moved from there for whatever reason. I don't really know, and that's them and their decision, but it was easy for me to speak for all of us, to do the right thing, that they wanted it back there, so be it, It is.
so they should evaluate them and then decide the numbers each year.
That's the only reason I'm asking, if they come in,
Maybe Tar Heels should have been closed.
somebody want to put one someplace else in Clark, and put one over there across the river or something like that, what we getting ready to get into? If we just kind of leave that open in the door, see, I don't think.
Only problem with that, that's something we have no say.
Okay.
We have no control. Anyone else?
So if somebody wants to have one set up, like they come to us to prove it,
Board of Election, goes to the Board of Election.
and then where do we come in and then if they, the board of elections say,
Budget amendment.
That pay for it.
okay,
He's got to pay for it.
gotta pay for it.
Right, says we gotta do it, we gotta do it.
Thank you.
Item 6, opioid task force, Cy Wilford, or Wyford. Correct me if I'm wrong, throw something at me, but I think I hit it pretty close.
You did. You hit it very close.
Good to see you again tonight.
Yeah, nice to see you. Nice to be here.
Good to be seen too.
Amen.
It's seen and not viewed.
Always a pleasure to come to Bladen County. Do you guys control this or do I?
If you just tell me next slide.
Okay, great. Perfect. So, before we get started, I want to say that, I really have a great deal of respect and appreciation for, Charles Peterson's role in the drug, the opioid and other substance abuse task force, as well as, Terry Duncan. The health department has been incredibly supportive of the whole process. And so, I've worked with several counties over substance abuse needs assessments and now the opioid problem. And Bladen County has made probably more progress in the past couple of years than any other county that I've worked with. And so I think that speaks well to their leadership and what the county is about. We haven't been able to impact the overdose rate or the deaths from opioids because the problem's growing, but I think we've got a good shot at it here in this next go around. So, what I want to do is be able to give you some idea of what the previous plan was. I want to update you on the progress on that plan, and then I want to talk to you about the new goals for the next strategic plan that includes the opioid settlement funds. So if you could change the slide for me, it'd be great. And I think you've got this in your handout. In 2019, the Kate B. Reynolds Foundation awarded the county a grant to conduct a thorough substance abuse needs assessment for Bladen County because of the issues that you were having. Bladen County hired our consulting group, ACT Associates, to come in and essentially conduct the process. I think we had over 14 focus groups throughout the county, various locations, taking a whole slice across the major county government, as well as churches and support groups and treatment providers and the whole range of folks to get some idea of how they felt the seriousness of the problem was and what potential solutions were. When we first sat down with the leadership of the task force, they were most concerned about creating a system that all county residents would have access to and that would cut across not only all problems, substance abuse problems, but all geographic areas and all populations. So there's a model out there called the recovery-oriented system of care, and that's what you have in front of you here with this chart. It includes prevention, harm reduction, intervention, treatment, and post-recovery supports. We built the original strategic plan on those premises. And so what we came up with for that plan was the 12 or 15, 12 areas that the county should take a look at in trying to stem the overdose problem and also the substance abuse issues that were occurring. One of the things that we found out was that opioids were not the only problem, that alcohol was just as much of a problem or more than opioids were. So we recommended the task force be renamed to the Substance Abuse Task Force, and the committee took that action. Early on, we volunteered, I think, to write a grant to HRSA, which the county got awarded a $1 million grant over 3 years to the health department. And the HRSA grant allowed the county to hire licensed substance abuse professionals for its health department, and also will work in the social services as well as the child welfare department, and an integrated clinic here in the county to do early intervention assessments. Those positions have been hired, and those people are working to hopefully catch folks as early as they can in the process. It also paid for a position called a resource manager. One of the problems that the needs assessment identified was that people just didn't know where to go for help. And that created all kinds of issues with your law enforcement, your EMS, trying to pick people up and get them someplace, but there was no place to get them. And so, resource lists are out of date about the time you print them up. And so we threw into we included in the HRSA grant some kind of web-based system that can be updated easily, and that's in the process of getting worked out. So people can know where to go, who to call, and what services are available to them. One of our recommendations was for the county to discuss with East Point why they didn't have basic services here accessible and readily available. One of the charges that the LMEs have is to provide 24/7 mobile crisis help, as well as a range of substance abuse services. Bladen County did not seem to be getting its fair share of services. There was a lot of issues, challenges with providing mobile crisis and intervention. And we facilitated Bladen's decision to separate from East Point and join Trillium. I think you're getting more services. I think that's going smoother than it was. And I really applaud your willingness to take that step. I know it caused a great deal of angst, but it really needed to happen. We have not been involved with law enforcement. I'm sure they're working together, the local law enforcement agencies as well as the sheriff, but we just have not been intimately involved with that. The court system, John David, the district attorney, is very interested in having a drug court for Bladen and Columbus, and is pursuing that, continuing to have meetings, and we're encouraging him to seek federal dollars to provide that drug court here locally. The schools, the HRSA grant also provided funds to purchase an evidence-based prevention program for the school system. And teachers in the school system were trained on that this summer. That was for the Whiteville schools as well as the Elizabeth City schools as well as the Bladen County schools. And we made the offer to the faith-based schools that if anybody wanted to join us, that we could certainly make that available. And I don't think we had any takers on that, but there is a prevention program that's evidence-based now in the school systems in Bladen County. As I said, the HRSA grant allowed those positions at the health department to be hired, and those folks are working hard to identify substance abuse at those entry points into the public system. So folks that have problems with substance abuse in child welfare or in the health department or in the prenatal clinics are identified early on, and we don't have to get to the crisis stage with that. I think there was some activity with the ABC board, but I don't recall right away what that was.
We're giving Southeastern Crossroads money every quarter.
There you go. Yep. We recommended that there be some activity around Oxford houses. Folks who do get into recovery oftentimes need sober housing. They need to be working, and they need to be supported in that effort. And so we have had several conversations with the Oxford houses, and we'll talk about that more a little later. There also needs to be some activity around self-help groups. And we also had a few contacts with AA, NA, Nar-Anon, Al-Anon, and I think we had a couple of meetings, but that wasn't as successful as we had hoped to get started. And the community education awareness campaign was also covered by the HRSA grant. So there should be, once we get the resource specialist up and running and get some semblance of current resources, there should be an initiative to train or educate the public about the dangers of alcohol and drugs, how you get help if you have this in your family. And so we're looking forward to that taking hold too. If you could advance me there on the slides, that's great. Okay, keep going. Another one. So Ray and Charles asked me if I would do an update to give you some guidance about what to do with this influx of the opioid settlement money. So we took a look at the data. And this is from 2011 to 2020. Check with my notes here. What you need to take away from this is that spike in that line that goes all the way up to the top there is heroin and or fentanyl, and that's in 2019. And in talking with the state medical director, 97% of the overdose deaths from heroin and fentanyl are fentanyl. And so this kind of war that we're in about the prescription opioids the nature of it has changed since we started down this path in 2016, 17, 18, 19. It's no longer prescription opioids that are causing the major problem. It's fentanyl. The second drug that's causing overdose deaths is cocaine, and then alcohol is the third drug that's causing the deaths. I have the next slide, please. So who is it that's dying from overdoses in Bladen County? And these are numbers that the state collects. For the most part, it's a majority, 60% of the deaths are male. A little less than 40% are female. The age range that folks are dying from overdose deaths in Bladen County ranges from 25 years to 64 years, with that 25 to 34-year-old slice of the population really having the most serious problem. If you were really bored and read the report 3 years ago, you'll see that 25 to 34 35-year-old slice of the population is right where the problem was then too. And so that's why a prevention program in the schools is so very important, because those 25-year-olds were not caught by somebody in the school system or their parents or their support groups saying to them, this is what can happen if you use this stuff. Another really interesting statistic is that 80% of the overdose deaths in Bladen County were white. About 16% were African American, and the rest were pretty negligible. So this is still fentanyl overdose issue. It's still primarily a white Caucasian kind of problem. It doesn't mean the other racial groups don't have their issues with marijuana, with alcohol, with other drugs, but when you're talking opioids, it's really prevalent among the Caucasian population. Change the slide, please. So what happened to them when they overdosed? And this is your EMS data. This is directly from your EMS service. 71, in the past year, 71, we had a total of 88, I believe is the number. 83 of the 88 Bladen County residents who overdosed in 2021 survived. That's probably due to Narcan administration with your EMS service. And 71 of those were transported for additional medical care. 12 were treated and released, and 5 were dead on arrival. And so I believe when we see all the numbers for 2021, we're going to see a decrease in the death rate from opioids, but it's too early to tell that. But that's my sense, is that it's starting to level off, but this whole fentanyl issue is a real catch-22. There's a lot of illegal fentanyl out there, and there's a lot of folks that are overdosing on it, either knowingly or not knowingly. It's laced with things. And so I'm not sure we're out of the woods yet. So where are these overdoses occurring? You want to change the slide, please? This is also information that your EMS collected. And it tells us where those calls occurred. Bladen Borough had the most overdose calls. Elizabethtown was second. White Lake third. Clarkton was fourth. Then Tar Heel, Lisbon, and East Arcadia. So that pretty well tells us where the problem is located, at least the overdose problem, and how folks are responding. You can switch the slides, thanks. So let's talk about opioids, the opioid settlement funds here for a minute. The opioid settlement funds from the Attorney General's lawsuit was awarded by county, and that was based upon the number of overdose deaths, the number of overdose deaths, the per capita population, and it seems like there was a third.
The prescription.
Yes, a number of prescriptions issued. That's right. Thanks, Charles. Bladen County share of that lawsuit was $2,746,233. What's really interesting about this is it's paid out over 18 years. That's an average of about $152,568 a year. So I want to just make you aware that it's your decision how you spend those dollars. The Attorney General has given you some pretty clear direction. It has to be spent with evidence-based practices. It has to be spent for opioid use disorders. So it can't be spent for a general substance abuse treatment program. It has to be specific to opioids. The evidence-based practice has got to be an evidence-based practice for opioid use disorders, not any evidence-based practice. And what evidence-based practice means is that there has to be research published showing that this intervention that you want to spend money on is successful for this population. So we got to keep that in mind as we're trying to figure out how to do this. The county is going to be held accountable for spending the money, tracking the outcomes of the interventions, and the report has to be filed on a dashboard that's on the web. So the public has to know where the money is going, how it's being spent, and whether or not you're spending it is effective. Is the death rate coming down? Is the overdose rate coming down? Is the number of prescriptions issued coming down? And so that's kind of the framework that the money has to be spent in. I used to run a program, and in some ways this money is certainly a blessing. My public program was funded annually, every year. We had to apply for a grant. Whether we got the grant amount was kind of up in the air until the state or the county decided how much money we're going to make. Never in my life did I ever think I would get funded for 18 years. I mean, it's just unusual in this public service kind of world. And so you have an opportunity here to really do some incredible work with this amount of money for the county and not throw it away. So how do we use that money to continue to build the system that your task force started building 3 years ago? You could change the slide, please. And that's what your next strategic plan outline. Did I give you that? You didn't get that? Okay. All right.
Page 5.
Oh, yeah.
Page 5.
It's like this. Yeah. Okay. I think it's the third page into your handout that I just gave you.
Last page. Page 5.
Something else about the money. If you look at the last page, what I've laid out for you is the state's payment schedule to the county, and I'm not quite sure their logic in laying this out this way, but you'll see that every year is a different amount.
Oh, yeah. Not that many.
I'm looking at this one for right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Page 6.
Page 6.
And so one of the things the Attorney General does not say to you is that you have to spend all this money that's allocated every year. You can carry it over. So I would just caution you, don't fund things that you're going to have to pull the money back in a year or two. It just wreaks havoc with your system. So be careful, be wise, be diligent about how you think about spending this money. If you take the average, which is the $174,000, if you just spent that much money every year, it would last 18 years. So that's the 152. Is that what it is? My figures are off again.
You said 152 a few minutes ago.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So think about what's the average and how you can spend that money. Okay. So looking at your overdose rates, now we're going to go back to this one page. Okay. We're going to recommend 2 through 11, if you will. There's a new program one of the things missing in your continuum is immediate access. And by immediate, I mean when somebody says my child has a problem and needs to get someplace today, or my spouse has a problem, or my parent has a problem, you don't have that service. Okay? It's not possible. And we've all known families where if you don't get them the day they kind of raise their hand or in the corner, you lose them. And that's just the nature of the addiction, unfortunately. And so there's a new program in New Hanover County called the Healing Place. It's 200 beds. It's open 24/7. It does detox. It does longer-term inpatient. It is peer run. It qualifies for this money. So they're selling beds. We put that out there for your consideration. We took a look at the number of beds that Bladen County would need. It would probably be about 5 beds. Not everybody's going to want to go to an inpatient program, but those that need to go and detox or get on some MAT medication need it immediately. And they're open 24/7. They will pick people up in Bladen County. Your sheriff, your police can transport, or the family can transport, but Healing Place has agreed to also transport from Bladen County if they need to go. So that's an option that you have today that you haven't had in the past. In addition to that, Trillium just allocated, put out an RFP to all its counties, and Bladen County applied for it to provide. We had to come up with what we wanted opioid money to be used for from Trillium. And so we submitted an application for Bladen County that said a couple of things. Working with the health department, we noticed that you don't have a lot of access to medication lock boxes. So families can't keep their opioid prescription medications secure in their house. So your grant application to Trillium included 150, I think, or 200 medication drop boxes, help me, Terry, which the health department will be passing out at its health fairs and to its clients, to whomever needs them. It also included money to provide an injectable form of naltrexone, which is the drug that folks use when they're trying to have sustained efforts at recovery from an opioid use disorder. And so the total grant was $77,319, and I think Trillium is going to give you the entire amount. So folks going to the Healing Place who want to be on Vivitrol, which is the injectable form of the naltrexone, can now go to the Healing Place and get the naltrexone to have some sustained recovery. The Healing Place, if you contract with them, will help you set up Oxford houses. They work closely to get those in communities, so that will be at no cost to the county. They are also, they're a self-help, peer-run organization, and so they also do a lot of work with AA, NACA, Nar-Anon, Al-Anon. They will also help the county set up some self-help meetings so their folks can continue that effort when they come back to Bladen County. One thing that's missing, it's missing statewide, I don't quite understand why, is an intervention for kids, either kids in foster care or just kids in general who are either dealing with their parents' substance abuse issues or starting to experiment with their own substance abuse issues. There's no place to send them. There's no place to treat them. And so we think that that might be a really good grant opportunity for the county to consider. SAMHSA has some grants available, HRSA has some grants available. There might be a criminal justice for adolescent grant available. And so we, think that it would be worth your time to consider going after a grant opportunity like that. Usually those federal grants, especially through HRSA, SAMHSA, or the Bureau of Justice, are multiple years. So they have a planning year, and then they have 2 or 3 years of actually providing the support for the program. And so that would be one area that we would think would be a great, that really would help you solidify your continuum of care. The other thing that we think that would be a good way for you to consider spending your opioid settlement money is a community paramedic program. And you had one. It only lasted a year because SAMHSA only funded it for a year. And so where are the folks who are in the most trouble with opioids? As you saw your EMS numbers, it's EMS that they're on ground zero of this. They get the call. They're administering the Narcan, or your law enforcement folks are administering the Narcan. And so what happens after the Narcan gets administered? You stabilize the person, or you transport them, and then you walk away. You don't link them to treatment. And the role of a community paramedic is to follow up with them the next day and encourage them to get to treatment. And if you funded beds at the Healing Place, we would have a place to send those folks, have a place for that community paramedic to send people. So we'd like to see you kind of reestablish that community paramedic program. And then, you know, there's all kinds of grant money available for drug courts and the establishment of drug courts. The state has a really strong evidence-based practice model through the administrative office of the courts, and they would be supportive of Bladen and Columbus potentially sharing a drug court or potentially going in together to share a drug court. And so we think that's another grant opportunity that the county should consider getting behind, because that would help us then, not only in your drug and alcohol related cases, but in your child welfare cases. You know, the national statistics are about 85% of all the kids in foster care coming out of a home where alcohol and drugs is affecting at least one parent. And that's not an issue that you solve overnight. And so a family drug court, if you went in that direction, would be a really good tool for your county to consider in order to get a handle on that. So I think that was the last slide. Nope. Oh, there's your spending money. So that's the last slide. Do you have questions for me, comments?
Yeah. With the allocation of funds, when I was up in the state conference, the North Carolina Association of County Officials, that's the executive branch, had said that they would come into any county and work with them to implement this long-term project. Because they said a lot of the counties got a lot more money. They're hiring all kind of experts to come in to allocate funds. They said some smaller counties doesn't have that resource to do it, to manage the funds. And they was made the offer that we needed them to come in to support us, that they would bring their staff in to help with the long term, because they said they don't want this to be a short term objective, like all these guys be MCOs to holler, they want money. They said that's our portion, you're going to give away some money because it should be the long term. And some of the guys from New Hanover and Brunswick County was at the meeting. And they spoke of doing something in a type of a joint venture that would be long term, because they said the main problem that they're having, they can get a person sober in New Hanover County, but if they don't change him out of the environment, he's right back into the same situation. And they want to look at, they said they got more money in Brunswick County, New Hanover.
Yeah.
If they would come in and do a joint venture where we would literally house some of the people that were recovering and take them out of that environment, they would support us on that. And we could make a contribution to how they would provide that type of housing and even transportation so they can work in New Hanover, but they would not live there in that same environment, because they said it takes 2 to 3 years before a person really can feel full effect of sobriety. So I know they were saying Columbus County, if that was Brunswick and New Hanover, they were saying that they would love to get with Bladen County and talk about some type of a joint effort with the opioid crisis, because they say that they know they have a whole lot more money than we have, but that's not an issue. They said they want to work, and I didn't know whether you had spoken with any of those guys or not.
We were invited to attend a meeting of the court officials, and with Columbus, Brunswick, and Bladen at New Hanover. And it was a pretty interesting discussion. I think that's really kind of up to your county. How do you want to work with them?
But I'm asking you, do you think something like that, since you're the one giving the expertise to us here, would that be something to do if we would look at that type of a resource?
I think how you cooperate is you use their resources, and using their resources is the Healing Place. They've got the building, they've got the beds that they're selling, and you want to come back. You want your folks to come back here, come back home. If they want to come back home, and you want to give them the support that they need to be here in a sober environment. And so I think I think we've got some good momentum on that issue. I don't know whether other things that they're talking about, but I think.
The reason I was looking at it, like if you try to provide some type of housing for a person to relocate to, our resources would be so limited that we couldn't afford to maintain something like that.
Oh.
They won't be able to either.
They saying that.
Not when you include their numbers. They got money based off population like we do.
But
She can tell you that.
But they were just talking, this is a conversation.
Yeah, well, they're not just gonna give us money.
No, it wasn't to give them money. They said that it would be something that they were putting a joint venture type situation, not to give them.
I think if you allow me, before Mr. Peterson speaks, I think we do owe Mr. Peterson a lot of gratitude and appreciation. As you well know, this county did get out the gate real quick, and we were recognizing that fact. We were very innovative at the beginning, and he was instrumental in that. And, you know, credit's due where credit's due, and I appreciate that, and I'm sure the other commissioners do, because there was talk about how Bladen County, for our smallness, how we stepped out front at the very beginning, and I appreciate that.
So, Mr. Carter, I appreciate your comments, but we've been doing this here, Greg and Terry, and Sid and myself, and a few more have been doing this 3 or 4 or 5 years now. I think we know what Bladen County needs. I personally don't need no outside help coming in and telling me what I need to do. We're talking about Healing Place, giving them a place. We're talking about coming out of Healing Place, there'll be Oxford houses and things like, everything you just discussed is going to happen in this plan. We don't get millions and millions of dollars. Like Columbus County got almost, what, 3 million? 2 point something?
Columbus County got 7.8.
$7.8 million.
That's what I'm saying.
We need to take our money, and this is me, and this is, I'm supporting this plan you presented tonight. We need to take our money, our little bit of money, and we're going to get the biggest bang for our bucks with what we're proposing here tonight.
I didn't have a problem, Charles, with the issue. I'm just looking at you saying you don't need any outside help. You're getting outside help and you're getting money. That's outside help.
Carter, you need to pay attention to what I said, son.
I pay attention to what you said. But what I'm saying is, if someone can be supportive of what you're trying to do in your effort, you're going to turn them down? We're willing to take any help that's come here, but that we're not going to tell us I was spending a little bit of money.
Charles, the only thing I asked her, has she spoken with these guys to see what they was going to offer? I didn't say do anything, but see what they had on the table to offer. You don't turn something down, you ain't know what you're turning down. You don't know what they're going to offer you. I was just asking you to have a conversation with them. That was the question. I didn't ask you that question. I didn't tell you to do anything.
No, we ain't had a conversation with them.
I was asking you to have a conversation with them.
We think this plan is the best for Bladen County.
Okay, whatever you say.
Anybody else?
Ma'am, what type of, public information service do you have available to inform the citizens of your services and everything?
You mean of the task force?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the health department is working on that through its HRSA grant, and there will be some kind of community education process where the citizen. My guess is there'll be billboards, there'll be handouts, there'll be flyers, there'll be things on Bladen Online. There'll be a whole range of ways that we communicate with Bladen County residents to let them know what's available. That's our goal. And we know that not everybody's going to access things online. There's a lot of old school around, so it can't be just online. And so we've got, we've started working on that resource plan. It's not done yet, but it's out there. It's in process.
How many lock boxes you said you had?
I think Terry said 250.
250?
I thank Mr. Brett for his comment, but, we kind of backed off our task force meetings because we were waiting on the strategic plan and getting ready to start that back up. But the best way you can share what we're doing around substance abuse in Bladen County is get your tail to these meetings, and then you can go to your churches and you go some, and you can tell everybody. Where everybody ain't gonna see it online, everybody ain't gonna see that billboard. That's you get it out by the word of mouth, and we really need help, and I've asked and begged for people to come, and they just don't show up.
And I'll tell you the the best salespeople you have are folks who have recovery behind them. And if they're out there, they're in your county, they're getting well, they're starting to pay taxes because they're working here, they're staying sober, those are the folks that we want to grow that population here. So you do have those good ambassadors all through the county in every little area.
Sid, thank you for coming
Yep,
tonight.
thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
your
Thank you.
presentation.
It's a pleasure to work with you.
Can we get a motion to go into water board?
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Blessing, second by Mr. Bullock. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Jeff McCleary, our director.
Good evening.
Evening, sir.
I have with me tonight Mr. Logan Parsons with LKC Engineering. He contacted me a few weeks ago talking about the potential for some grant funding to help us with some specifics that could enhance our water department, water operations, and access to records and things that we will need modeling going forward. I'll let him take it at this point and share with you what he's brought to us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. McCleary, Chairman of the board and members of the board, for the pleasure to be here tonight. As you know, we've have a long-term relationship working with your water district on numerous projects over the years, and more recently, we have a lot of experience with this program, which is through the state. It's through their division, which is called Division of Water Infrastructure. But what's happened is through, I mean, I've heard the term ARPA, ARPA, American Rescue Money. Well, the state's got a big allocation of that money, and they're trying, a lot of their focus is to spend it on these type of planning grants. What it is they report, or it's a 100% grant, no match, no contribution currently, because it is through the ARPA program. And you would use it for the sole purpose of studying your inventory in your water system, assessing the infrastructure within your water system. And then from there, you take all the data and you look towards setting priorities on where do you need to spend your money in the water system, like as far as capital improvements, operational expenses, and all that gets organized into the form of a report, which is an asset management plan. And then part of that, there's several other components. I know I'm throwing out a lot of acronyms and stuff, but a capital improvement plan is important. That's part of it. And part of the task of putting all that together is as Mr. McCleary said, was you take a bunch of data, a bunch of old plans, files, and you actually take all those, we can scan them all, get them all into a digital database, use those to update your GIS maps, and use that to also update your modeling. And, you know, we've seen, you actually do have a pretty decent record system that's been built over the years, but what's happened is technology's changed, and now that so much data is stored online, your abilities have kind of outpaced what you actually have online. So this will be kind of like a mass update to your maps and your models to get you caught up to speed. So essentially, it's a good opportunity. Part of everything going forward, the state's focused a lot on kind of two things. One is lead and copper services, abandon those, which I don't think y'all have an abundance of, but maybe some of your older systems might. But more importantly and directly affected y'all would be the presence of and unknowns associated with the Gen X, PFAS, and emerging compounds. So being Bladen County's geographic location to some the facility and in other cases for that, this is a good opportunity to, I think it helps build your case for the need of the study and making sure your records of your water system are all up to date.
Motion approved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Peterson, second by Mr. Wood. Other discussion?
Mr. Brett,
Yes, sir.
Jim Perry at the COG is working on a portal. I wish you would touch base with him. And they're doing that for water lines, sewage lines, natural, everything. So maybe we can pick it back,
Yes, sir.
if you would, please.
We've actually worked with them, helping them update some other.
Okay, yeah, okay, okay. So you'll,
That's a good resource that you can use too.
yeah, you're, okay.
Spot on there, sir.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
What's it called?
Jim Perry.
So the next item we have, thank you, we appreciate that, and I'm sure Logan will help us move forward with getting that application made in a timely manner. As the grant deadline application process is very short on this, right?
Yeah, September 3rd.
The next item we had, there was an update on water taps and tap backlogs and fees. We are working right now and have obtained, Alan has worked in my absence here the last couple of weeks in obtaining quotes from 3 different contractors to assist us with getting some of our backlog of taps caught up. Presently, as of this morning, have about 20 water taps on the books. Some of those are considerably behind in date. We would have hoped to have had some of these completed before now, but we've also had a shortage of staff. Unfortunately, at one point there, we were down to Allen and two workers in the field. We did have some staff leave us, and we are working to replace those. But that did put us behind on getting things done, as well as a problem we've had in Bladen here for the last year or so with trying to get locates completed. We call, we request, NCIS is the locating service local to us. They tell us they'll get right on it, but sometimes a week later it's not been done, 2 weeks later it's not been done. Call and update tickets and that kind of stuff. So that's delaying us too. But we are working to move forward with contracting with one of the local contractors here to get started on making some of these taps for us. Spoke with him this afternoon. He's anxious to get moving. Says he's got a crew ready to send over right away. And so we're anticipating if we can get the locates completed. On short taps, he could potentially do 2 or 3 a day. They're close together. On long taps, it may take a day per tap. He's prepared to cover that. Long taps being the taps we have to bore under the road, but he's already equipped with the equipment to do that. So locates on that will be our delay. But he's staffed and ready to go if we can turn him loose on that. And we have a contract before him right now. It would require a signature from us and then get moving on awarding that and get him going. So that's where we are there. And
Mr. Kidd, Mr. Brett.
yes.
I know it's private county policy to get 3 bids.
Yes.
When they start backlogging, and I don't mean this, Nate, I appreciate what y'all guys do. When they start backlogging, can we get something in place so that we pick up the phone and call maybe all 3 of these and get this thing called up? I've had a lady call me. It's been 5 weeks, was 5 weeks? And I mean that nice. I know y'all working hard, and I know it's tough out there, but I was just wondering if that would help y'all in the water department to have somebody already accepted to go forward when you need them.
This particular contractor I spoke with today agreed that this contract we're entering now will be on a per unit basis, per tap number, and it will be good through June 30th of this coming year. So it will go right on into 2023. If we need him, we can call in.
But did you do 2 contractors? You don't?
I don't think.
In case something happens. I'm just asking, I'm not.
In talking with those, and Alan can confirm what I'm about to say, one of these contractors was more than a month out on getting somebody over here. And I think 2 of those were like a month out. They were the higher price contractors.
I was just trying to.
Yeah, I agree with you. We need people on ready standby to help us. Yes, sir.
I just have a question. I didn't see anything about the app cost, nothing.
We are working on evaluating the cost of taps. The tap price is in this contract for him doing the actual work for us, but our material costs have gone up. Since first of the year, I think Logan can attest to this. We've seen in some some fittings and some materials have doubled in price. And currently, I can share this with you, in a study that Alan's already done, we are not recouping our costs for materials on each tap. We'll have some numbers to bring back to you and some recommendations on what to do to correct that. But a 3/4 inch water tap's $450 now, and the materials alone exceed that price. So when we say that, meter, pipe, fittings, box that goes in, and all the things we have to do, and that does not include labor. That's just materials on. So we'll be bringing some things back to you to help correct that moving forward. Okay?
And do you have the number of, are these old taps, or maybe I missed part of it?
Okay, the taps we're going to catch up on have been taps that have come in since July. Yes. That's what we're working on now. I think the oldest one dates back into the latter part of July. So that's where we are right now. And then the final thing, yes.
I thought once you submitted a ticket to have something located, they had a certain amount of time to do that.
They require a minimum 48 hours notice unless it's an emergency location.
You're talking about, you said weeks. I mean,
they have stretched out in weeks. Alan can attest to that one too. They don't have a commitment time for us when we call in those locates. They require us to give them 48-hour notice before we dig, unless, again, it's an emergency. And then they'll try to get somebody to you if they can. That would generally be in a situation where we're repairing a water line. But for a tap, something that's scheduled, they don't guarantee us a locate time. The ticket is good for 10 working days once we submit the ticket. They give us a ticket number. We're finding that sometimes we're having to update those tickets 2 and 3 times to ever get anybody out there to get the tap located, and they're just that far behind. The excuse they've given us is they're understaffed too, and there's a lot of construction going on in this county and Columbus as well, with fiber optic going in everywhere, and they're just backed up that much on getting things done. So that hasn't helped us. But being short-staffed hasn't helped either. So we regret that's happening with our customers, but we're trying to get up all that as quick as we can. And then the final thing I'd like to present to you, update regarding the Tar Heel School Water Service. I sent a memorandum to Mr. Martin. Last week we attended a meeting with the school, with the school's engineers. I had Mr. Logan and his team there with us as well to hear what they're anticipating doing there. They have a fire system need at that school of 1,500 gallons per minute. And the fire code requirement, I think Nathan can confirm this, is a minimum of 4 hours. We have to be able to supply 1,500 gallons a minute for 4 hours. There is nothing in the Tar Heel system I can go ahead and share with you tonight. Tar Heel system has always worked independently of our West system, because when we received that had a separate license number with the state. We call them a PWSID number. We have been talking with the state for almost a year now. Alan has, about combining that system with West. We're still working at that. But the little town of Tar Heel had 2 wells in town, and they operate independently of our West system, and neither of those is even capable of 200 gallons a minute. So the next choice of getting water to that school was tap into the West system, which is partly supplied by Tobermory and then interconnected with the rest of our system. However, we've got some elevation issues in operating those 2 systems together. So that being the case, our limited supply to that site as of tonight is only 500 gallons a minute, and they need 1,500. Otherwise, according to the state code, they will not be able to occupy that school. So we felt it was very pertinent to get involved and find out what they need and look at it from a bigger perspective. Their approach was build an on-site storage tank to store water that would suffice that need. We said, what do we need in Tar Heel? What do we need in the Tobermory system that could be a better plan for us moving forward, provide better service, increase our water pressure potentially in Tar Heel, and help with everything going on in that district. And the idea was, instead of a ground storage tank that only served the school, request that part of that money to build that would be brought back to us to help construct a potentially elevated storage tank there and enhance the overall Tobermory system and the west system in that area. We're still right now looking at the cost. We have a meeting scheduled with them again next week to find out what their numbers show they would spend on the ground storage tank and how much of that could be brought back to us to help build an elevated tank.
And also help the Tar Heel Fire Department.
It can, yes, sir. The plan right now will be leave that site and come back to 287 with a water line on River Road, which we currently don't have. That could help that whole area.
Ballpark price.
Haven't got enough to give you that information yet, sir.
If you would put a straw in the river, put the fire out.
I don't know that you can. If you put a ground station there at the river with a tank, with a pump and any kind of reservoir, I don't know that you can. Go ahead.
I was looking back at Nathan because I'm not sure on.
It'll take a lot of permitting from the state to do it.
Yeah.
What's the mess?
A mess. So where are we gonna get the money to do this?
This is something we're gonna have to talk about too. When we come back to you with a cost, we're gonna try to project to you how much it will be and what our options are on funding.
How about the architect that did the planning? I mean, thinking about, I'm just asking, it's almost hard to believe, actually.
Well,
I mean, I'm just saying.
they were of the impression that there was water in that area. We have county water there. We just don't have the volume they need.
On your new system though, will it still give you 1,500 gallons, what you're talking about?
If we could put in a 300,000 gallon elevated storage tank there, yes.
Okay, that's the only one.
You basically put it right next to the site.
Okay. And that's the only one.
And construct a large line between the two.
Does school board send us a big check?
Well, and all of that will be brought back to you at a future date to discuss what the options are, what the cost will be, what our involvement would be, what their involvement would be, and how we can move forward.
Why they can't?
Smithfield has the water, use their water.
I don't know if we can because of combining their system with our system. Once you cross
Just
over,
for fire protection.
but you're still intermingling two water supply systems.
A straw in the river. Just asking, I don't know. I don't have a clue.
Remember, anytime we're planning for what we do, we're a groundwater system. And we inject chlorine and a couple of other things to sequester iron. But when they do river water, that's a whole different operation. And you start developing, when you cross or combine those two systems, you start getting some.
I was just thinking for fire protection only.
Right.
I was thinking about that. I'm not exactly sure where their line stops, but I think you're gonna have to install almost about a mile of big pipe to get from their system to your system.
For another $300,000.
It might be. It's not. Might be, but
Yeah.
I just asked, I don't know. Thank you.
One last question. Why is it the state requires them that amount of money?
Fire code.
I know, I understand it's code, but tell me why.
It's based on the size of the building
And the sprinklers and all that, is what it is?
Yes, the way the building's construction and all that, yes. Sprinkler system in the building.
Motion to exit water board.
Second. We got a motion by Mr. Bullock, the action water board, we got a second by Mr. Cameron.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Finance Department, Ms. Lee.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Come on. Solid waste.
By the way, I was asked to update regarding the rental of a roll-off truck for the solid waste department. As you know, we have been struggling to keep up in solid waste because we've been short-staffed. Well, we had another incident hit us here about a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago now, with a roll-off truck that the engine went out on. We've got one truck on order, but we're not promised that truck until sometime around first of the year if it gets here then. It's being manufactured.
And it was ordered last, August?
Last July. Yeah, so it's been over a year on order. So the situation we have right now, one of the roll-off trucks is down. That limits us to 2 trucks. They're old, and we struggle to keep up every week with just 2 trucks. So while one truck is out having the engine replaced, that's not going to be a small number, but we're working to be able to do that. The need for renting a 3rd truck or renting another truck to replace that truck has been explored. And what we could do, Mr. Hall has worked hard to find 2 vendors who can supply that truck who are reputable companies with good equipment. Because once these trucks come over to us, then we're responsible for the operation of it, the maintenance on it, and that until it goes back into their possession. We're working on getting that together right now, but hopefully we'll have something going here that can last us 4 to 6 weeks while this other truck's out having it. Just wanted to share that with you. If we can get a rental truck, the second company he's found has it more available quicker and a little cheaper price than what we got on the first. So we're working to go in that direction right now and get a truck here as quick as we can on rent. Not a lot of companies out there that supply roll-off trucks for solid waste.
Yeah, are you short-staffed in that area?
Yes, sir.
So maybe just, I'm just throwing something out again. Have you thought about contacting Waste Management's furnished truck and employee?
Yes.
Okay.
They're short-staffed too.
Okay.
So if it's delayed, are you able to put some additional containers outside on those sites?
Well, we're short on containers too. That's another one we're working on overcoming.
What's the rental cost?
The first price was around $2,000 a week. The second price is a little better than that.
How much again?
$2,000 a week.
I'll loan you a little 94 Ranger today.
Yeah.
That'll help.
Yeah.
It runs cheap and it don't break down.
Wheelbarrow cheaper than that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Yes,
good
sir.
night.
Now, Ms. Cole, our finance officer, the lady in charge of all dollars.
Good evening to each of you. Go over the dashboard in August 31st, 2022. The revenues for the general fund have reached 18.98% of the revenues collected, and we've spent 14.94% in general fund. Solid waste, we've collected 21.44% and spent 15.12%. Versus telephone, we're at 4.71% in revenue and 2.73% in expenditures. The water department, we've collected 19.08% and spent 4.89%. And this was the last month that we would actually have any rollbacks into last fiscal year except for sales tax. So you should start seeing more numbers on your dashboard going in the future. Any questions about the dashboard? On the federal inmate program, we're a little bit behind right now, and they're working on this. They're still moving inmates around. We're averaging about 68 inmates a month instead of our 80, which we've got budgeted, but they're working on that. Any questions on that? Next item is the resolution for the financing arrangements with First Bank at 3.25%.
Order to approve.
Motion by Mr. Bullock, got a second from Mr. Cogdale. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Item 10, the sheriff's office. They won't be here tonight. They're still working on a couple of things. Advisory board appointment.
Reappoint the Beaver man.
Motion to reappoint Beaver. Got a second by Dr. Montgomery. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, 1.
Alan Davis in place of, Adam Adams in place of, Glenn.
Okay.
Motion by Mr. Peterson, a second by Mr. Hester. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Voluntary Agriculture Group Committee 2.
Second.
Motion by reappointment, Mr. Peters, second by Dr. Moore. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Watershed Review Board 2.
Ask that we reappoint Mr. E.W. Bowen, looking for a replacement for Graham. I did send an email saying that he was no longer able to participate. And also Mr. Lorenzo Graham passed in May. So I asked the court, replace him with, Wanda Daniels, and I sent that information about a month ago. I sent it again today.
Motion by Dr. McGowan on this 2.
Second.
And, got a second from Mr. Bullock, so we're still short one.
Yes, Graham, I'll find a replacement for him.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. You got that, didn't Madam Clerk? Library Board appointments for consideration during October 17th, 2022 meeting. EMS Advisory Council 2 and Library Board 2. American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, enabled projects.
Chairman, make a motion, we approve 1, 2, 3, and then 5 through 9, and table number 5 until we can get a little bit more information.
Let's see, there's one, which one, Tim?
All but 5, and only so that we can get some more information.
All right, well, I'll make my motion first.
What information is needed on number 5?
Yeah.
So what information needed on?
We gonna do things in order? I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I made a motion and we're just, everybody's hollering at me.
I second that.
No, that's open.
We get discussion. We got a motion by Mr. Cameron on which one, sir?
All but 5, and just table that one until we get some more information.
And table 5. Okay, got a motion by Mr. Cameron and a second by Mr. Peterson. Any further discussion?
Now, I have one. I want to know why, what information would you like to know?
Sure thing, absolutely. Had a conversation with John David. He's in a murder trial, so he's not aware of this. And I just think by using his name and he doesn't, and it's not his fault, he's just tied up in a murder trial, so he doesn't know anything about this. There's just a lot of ambiguity about this. Again, I think.
So
He did the same assistance a couple of years ago, he kept us on the same program. So you,
I'm sorry.
Well, it was, I guess, can I just finish, my answer? This was his recommendation. He said, I think because this has been done in some other counties, that it needs to be very, very clearly governed. And I think he used his exact words, because I don't put words in his mouth.
take that part of it off. Do it other program.
That it would need to be some careful oversight as to how the money is expended. And so at this point, my question is, I guess, who's going to actually distribute the money and that sort of thing?
Miss John David, on this, I've had the pleasure of speaking with his assistant DA. Her name is Adam, I think her name is Adam Smith. She's assistant DA. He called, when I spoke with him about this, John David told me that he would have her to call and set this up, and that she would be the one responsible. He told me about he was in a murder charge, a murder trial that had been postponed in Wyville for 2 years. That trial is over. That was the one that they reached a verdict on last week. That trial is over, that he was tied up in. That trial is over already. So John Davis is not tied up on that case anymore. But he assigned this to, just like he had before, his assistant DA. One time it was the DA who was running was McGee. He went into being a judge. Then they had the guy Glenn, another one that he left, and he went to Cumberland County. And he assigned another DA. Her name is Adams Smith. That's Smith. I got a number here. I can give it to you. And she's the one that's supposed to be setting this program up. And I know it has come up a question that I spoke with Ms. Lisa about as to how the money was going to be expended. John Davis said he cannot expend any kind of money because they don't allow the DA to do with the money, period. He said, I can't disperse any money, period. So when I spoke with him about that, He talked to me about what was there. Me and my son was on the phone. He talked about what he wants to do and what is pending. Now, I went to Miss Lisa and I asked her for her to present to me what was required of the LLC, of that nonprofit, in order to be able to handle these funds. I'm not a part of that organization at all, none at all, of that nonprofit. I don't have any part in that board, and she can tell you she has documents to justify that. None at all. Mr. Peters, I hear you sitting here, and you was the one making a question about me being on that board. I'm not.
I'm fixing to ask you another question.
I have done no different than you. You sit right there and went over there to Bladen Blooming and sit as the chairman of the board until your son got a contract to get funding from over there to go on that thing, and you resigned and none of us knew about it till we found out Mark was on the Bladen Blooming board. Just hear me out now. You did that because that was the rule and the policy that they set in place for you to do. You came right back in here and you did it again.
There's nothing to do with what we're talking
Yes,
about.
it is. Got the same. Let me talk and you talk. I don't have to, son. And then he turned around and you came in here with Bladen Community College. You walked in here one night, made a motion to come out for a board. To come out for a board at the same time you put Mark DeLisper on the board. A day later, you went and I remember a Bladen Community College on payroll the next day. And you left it for one reason, because they said you had to leave because it was ethical wrong for you to be on both of those boards. You've done that yourself. Tell me what is that discretion that you got a problem with? I don't know what the heck you're talking about. I know what you did. I retired from this.
Hold on, gentlemen.
Come on,
Hold on, gentlemen.
don't talk about that. I know what
Hold
y'all
on,
talking
gentlemen. We had a motion. We had a second. We're calling for a vote. Anything in the past should have been discussed at the past. This is not any part of that equation. He just said he'd like to table till he got further information. I respect that part because that's not a no or a yes. He just asked for it to be tabled. But we got a motion and a second.
But, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker.
Because you can make your own motion as well.
My only comment I have with that is, he's asking for information about how the funds are going to be spent. We have a rule, and if they are not spent correctly, they have to be reimbursed. Am I correct? Ms. Coleman, is there a problem with this salvation project?
He and I have already discussed that, and he only had one thing in there that was questionable, and that was the stipend. And he has said he would remove that.
And that's done.
That's
So
it.
otherwise, it meets all the requirements, not just the, I'm sorry?
And let me say that, I told these gentlemen, I pointed out the word stipend. I said, that's what I have a major
And
issue with,
took it out.
but it's still there, so.
She just said it would be removed. She asked me about that. And we said, my son, we called and said, and she said, you need to remove it, Mr. Togdale. So we complied with everything. And that's what she said, information has been provided on the bottom of the thing that you see now in front of you.
Now, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The organization is working with felonies to seek relief and clean their record, or are they a PPE organization?
Mhm.
There seem to be two focuses. And they're also working with one-day relief to help distribute PPE to citizens in Bladen County. And they're also working with felony to seek relief. So they got two focuses, is that right?
That's two different things.
Okay.
And this dealing with.
Well, I know it's two different things. I'm just asking. That just seems to be a weird combo to me.
The thing is,
And then you're linking that to John David. It's going to be a PPE.
No. John David is linked to.
District attorney costs for travel and support staff, facility rental costs.
That is dealing with, the thing what I'm saying, I understand what you're saying. The PPE is something that's been handled, that's going on now. That's been handled for the last 18 months during the PPE crisis. Now you're sitting there saying, I don't understand what you're saying. It's an LLC. You mean to tell you can't handle one project?
When was the LLC formed?
It's been formed 2 years ago.
Okay. I mean, I'll look it up on the Secretary of State.
Oh, yeah,
I know.
Mr. Cameron has the floor.
And I just, and I figured, I don't question the legitimacy of this. I'm just saying, if somebody has a question about it, it shouldn't turn into just villainizing them and throwing things, at them. It seems so broad. You read this and it almost would make more sense if this was broken down and said, we've got a program trying to help the DA with the expungement, get that. And there's a PPE need, and it just seems that there's an ambiguity and it's just strange. There's no other way to put it. When you read this, it's like, my goodness, there's almost like this.
We don't have enough PPE.
No, yeah, I thought you had 80,000 COVID tests somewhere. So I just think we're responsible for the community, for the citizens of the community, and for the, being good stewards of this millions of dollars we've been sent. And everything on here, I'm not questioning Ball of Branch. They do a great job. Appreciate the Cape Fear Large, man. Just the one that seems like I want to be able to vote in favor of this and say, yep, we did our homework. This is legit. I mean, if nothing else, it protects us as a board. It protects those that may be, in question there. That's a broad thing.
You just asked her over there. Mr. Remember, say one last thing. We just went to the lady over here that's handling all PPE funds to see if they meet the requirements to be expended. You just asked her, and she said that it does. Then you're saying, no, it doesn't, because you're not satisfied with what you want to hear. She was the one that set the rules on it. Everyone that comes through here, we gave her the jurisdiction for her to check them, to make sure every one of them is done and how. She has done that. We gave that responsibility to her.
Mr. Martin,
not to you.
I want you to go back and pull the dang date, what Cogdell's talking about, and I want you to present that to this Board of Commissioners, and I want you to present it publicly. Because he's sitting right there lying through his teeth.
What?
About BCC and everything else.
Child, you didn't
And I'm not gonna support it because.
Child, you didn't walk in here one day and make a motion in the same motion.
Quick, can I make a comment about him rebutting it?
Yeah, let's just go.
Will you just do that, Mr. Martin?
Man, bring it in here.
Is that all right with you, Mr. President?
We've had a call for question, we've called for vote, and he's just wanting to table it till he gets further satisfaction on obviously what he would like to know before the vote. So we got a motion and a second to table it to the next meeting, am I assuming? I call for a vote. All in favor, say aye on tabling it to the next meeting till everyone's satisfied.
Motion made us approve everything but that.
Everything but. Approve them all except that one. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mark. But all of them except that one. All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed.
I mean, one. You opposed?
Yeah.
All right.
Chair, I think it's one thing. I think just having a follow-up conversation with John David, I really think it's important when we use people's names that, and like I said, when I reached out to John David, he said, man, I really don't know anything about it. You understand, I wouldn't want somebody using my name and if I really wouldn't.
Oh, that was your motion and you got it.
So if we can just.
I'm gonna ask a question. I'm gonna ask one question. When we get through, Mr. Chairman, can I ask one question?
Let's go when we get down to.
This one question.
Go ahead, Mr. Carter.
One question. Anytime somebody's name or someone is used in a motion on this floor, do we need to hold it up until all of us can verify that person said it? I want to know that. Is that the way we're gonna do business?
If you vote on tabling it,
I'm just wondering, is that the way we're gonna do business?
that's the way it's always been.
You vote and move on.
That's the way it has been. I'm assuming we're following procedure. I don't see where we're not doing.
That's all right.
So, Mr. Chairman,
If you get to vote on the table, and that's what we just got. Yes, sir, Mr.
so items 1 through 9, exclusion number 5 has been approved.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And so what's going on? Okay.
That was the only one thing, was just a question you want to table before you got clarification. Mr. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to begin by critically reviewing the calendar with you for the remainder of September and October. As I pointed out tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., the Mount White Lake Chamber of Commerce meeting will take place at Whimsical Florist here in Louisiana at 8 a.m. Also, tomorrow evening from 5 until 7, there's an informational session that will take place at Bladen Community College in the auditorium, and that is with Moore's regarding
2 hours.
expansion.
2 hours.
programs or whatever, or projects. So just want to remind you of that. And then moving over to October, on Monday the 3rd at 8 a.m., there's a prayer service here. The board meeting that evening at 6:30. On Thursday the 6th, Executive PT meet at 12 noon at the Health Department. Also on Saturday the 8th, Great Festival will take place at Bladen. On Monday the 10th at 5 p.m., the Health Services Advisory Committee meeting. Ag 'em Up Days will take place on the 11th and 12th. That will be at the community college. On Saturday the 15th at 8:30, Trooper Kevin Connor Memorial Run will take place in Whiteville. Also that day at 12 noon, there's a community prayer service here on the courthouse lawn. On Monday the 17th, there's a special meeting at 4:30, cooperative extension for the reports of the people. Board meets that evening at 6:30. On Tuesday the 25th at 6 p.m., there's a CAB meeting hosted by the County of Tar Heel. And then Beast Fest will take place the 28th. Moving to item B, I mentioned briefly at the last meeting about this new initiative that the USDA Rural Development Organization has called the Rural Partners Network. And the purpose is to build stronger communities, particularly rural, socioeconomically challenged communities. They have identified approximately 5 states that will be part of the second cohort. And Bladen, Columbus, and Robeson are 3 counties in the southern part of the state, in addition to 4 counties in the northeastern part of the state that have been basically identified as potential candidates for this program. They are encouraging us to work as a collaborative, at least for the beginning of the process. We don't know any specific details really, other than federal funds will be made available in the future that hopefully Bladen can access and utilize for beneficial purposes. So what we need to do is just to get to the starting line, kind of as Reginald Spate says, we need to submit a letter of intent by next Monday, the 26th. We've had conversation, Kelly Blue, the Robinson County, Getty Madison, Columbus, and I, Friday, and we'll talk again tomorrow, to do a joint application. And we know that we have projects such as housing and various projects or whatever that we need to focus on here in Bladen County. So if you all, I know that's very broad and that's really all we have at this point, but if you all are in agreement with that, that will be our approach at this point.
And you need a motion, Mr. Martin, or?
That's fine. We didn't, I mean, as long as there's no disagreement, we can do it, but a motion would certainly be.
I'll make a motion.
A motion by Ms. Peterson, a second. Dr. Ellis, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And then the third thing is, I just want to update you, we have received a letter from the town of Elizabethtown regarding a grant opportunity that the town has the potential, or I guess they will receive approximately $4 million for runway improvements. There's a 10% local match that's required, so that dollar amount would be $420,000. The town is requesting for the county to pay $350,000 of that amount. The town will pay $70,000. So we're certainly not asking for any action at this time, but I just want to bring it to your attention for you all to be thinking about. We'll come back.
Brad, that's that be put on next agenda.
I've already asked Mark, is there how hard we can get off the $4 million to help?
Tell us where we can get the money.
Yeah, as much as, infrastructure that we're all working together out at the industrial park, got to be a plus. We're gonna take up a collection plate.
And same time, when you bring it back on the agenda, you'll give us information on how we'll get money from it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anything else, Ms. Martin?
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Individual delegation wish to address commissioners. Madam Minister to Commissioners, Dr. McGowan.
I did too. And I know we talked about it before the meeting, and just everyone to keep the attorney, Cliff Hester's family,
Yeah.
please keep him in prayer. He was a great man, friend of mine, so I tell you, and his wife, I do know her very well. So, just keep them in prayer. Other thing I want to ask if Dr. Duncan don't mind, do an update on COVID. And I ask that because I'm aware of different pockets of a lot of folks that have COVID. But we don't hear much about it. Well,
So, the incidence of COVID right now is probably as much as it was during the Delta variant. The good thing about it is the vaccines have worked, the immunity has worked. We don't see the hospitalizations and the deaths that we did with that. We did receive the bivalent vaccine, but we only had 100 doses. So now we are out of the Moderna until we can get the next shipment. It may be as late as the end of the month. You'll get your first and second dose, or the initial and the second dose. They're still doing testing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday over off at the EMS Training Center. They're providing the free tests at the health department to go to take home tests. We're holding our own right now. We're fortunate that we're in a good place.
Dr. Duncan, do you find that with all the test kits that we have in the county that Mr. Cogdell and all of us have had and all where people are taking the test themselves, I think personally, and I like that so people will know, and some people can't afford to buy, so I'm supportive of that. But with that being said, though, I don't know that we know now how bad that it is. Because several in my family have had it, and they have taken the stance, hey, just have to fight it, do what we think is right, do what we've been told, and go forward. But those numbers you don't have, so we don't know how bad it really is. And I'll tell you, it's out there.
We've taken that into consideration. We don't get reported the home test.
I had a son have it twice in 30 days. And, but those numbers, I don't think that, you know, a lot of people, but I think people being responsive and just accepting the fact it's a part of life. And, obviously, if you are making it health-wise, you know, you're dealing with it going on. I think the ones we find out about it more so is the ones that's having underlying circumstances and they are not doing well. So they have to seek a doctor other than their home remedies and doing what they can to cure and help themselves, I think. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but I think it's a situation where we don't know.
Mr. Britt, I'd like to clear up something to make sure, because I don't want us to be a controversial statement. And Mr. Peasley, I want to make sure that it's a full.
Oh, my God.
Everything.
Save it, Bray.
Listen to me, Charles, if you will. Every time you say something, you got something to say. The only thing I'm
I
saying
ain't
is,
even my mouth and you jump me.
if you're going to provide the information that he's requesting, could you forward it to all the board members?
I asked him to.
Listen to what I'm saying, Charles. Not the night of, but give it to us prior to it. So, Mr. Peterson, if I have made a mistake, I'll let you know, and I will apologize. But I want to see the information prior to we meeting. That's the only thing I'm asking.
I asked Mr. Martin to do that.
I want to make sure those prior to it. I don't want him to come in and tell me about when you come in here. I want to have it with the documentation so it can be just like you doing with mine. I can justify what's on it. That's all.
I think Cameron's point about the whole thing was not bringing up that kind of old stuff while we're talking about.
Well, old stuff comes up.
He can pull up blank pencil.
That's fine. That's fine. Old stuff comes up.
Motion to adjourn.
Got a second by Mr. Hester adjourn. We got a second by Mr. Peterson. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Ain't worry about no